Hi, Caleb from Brownells here, and in today's video we're going to be doing a bolt-action rifle build, and for this we're going to be using a Howa 1500 in 6.5 Creedmoor. So this particular build here, or this barreled action, we've actually had it in the studio for a while. We've done some older builds on it years ago, but I figured it was time to refresh it, do something new with it. So with that being said, this is just the barreled action. If you were to buy just the Howa barreled action, this is exactly what you would get. Except it would also come with a thread protector, but I have no idea where I put that, and that's not important for this. And it does come with the trigger already installed on it, so this is the Howa 2-stage trigger. This is, honestly, I leave these on here because this is like the best trigger that's ever come on any like mass-produced factory rifle ever. It's awesome. And it has a three-position safety, so you got that middle position there as well, so you can lock the bolts, unlock the bolts, you know, whatever. But with that, let's keep moving. Let's talk about some other stuff we're going to use here. So of course we have this, and the optic we're going to be using. This is the Athlon Cronus BTR Gen 2. So we haven't used any of the higher tier Athlon optics in here in the studio. I've never used any. We have done some stuff in the past with their lower end optics, so like their budget minded optics, which were just fine. But I decided I wanted to see what all the hype was about with these higher end Athlons. Because you know me, I use a bunch of different other optics. But we haven't used these. And so we just reached out to Athlon and we were like, hey, send us your most expensive rifle optic. Called up John Athlon and I was like, hey, send it. If you don't, you're scared. And so he's like, bet, and he sent it. None of that's true. If there is anyone out there named John Athlon, sorry, I thought I just made that up. But anyway, that's the optic we're using. I don't know why I told a weird story about it, but we're just going to keep going forward and talk about the stock. So, this is the Grayboe UMC, or Universal Mini Chassis. It's a whole, like, interesting take on the chassis system. So, before we go any further, let me just kind of tell you about that, because it's, as a key part of this build, it definitely deserves to be talked about a bit. So, we have two stocks here. We have this more like precision shooting style stock with a larger grip, raised cheek piece, all that other stuff, you know. So you have this one, and then you have this more traditionally contoured type stock. This one is noticeably a bit lighter, and standard grip size. You still have a larger cheek area there, but it's for all intents and purposes, it's more standard. And then you have M-lock rails just on the bottom, the sides nice and clean, whereas on this one you have M-lock rails on the bottom and on the sides, reinforced with aluminum. So this one's more of like a precision shooting type stock. This one's more of a, carry around, like go hunting or something like that type stock. Just a more traditional-ish type stock. And the reason why I'm talking about this so much, not only that, these are just two options. They have other options as well. But these are two options. Both of these stocks will fit pretty much any action out there. So whether it be a Howa action, Remington, whatever, because they are all made to fit this nifty little UMC, the Universal Mini Chassis right here. This is what they're made to fit. So you actually just buy this piece for whatever rifle action you have. This one, of course, being a Howa. We also have one on a Remington. Let me show that. So this is the same thing, but for a Remington. The cool thing about this is that both of these stocks will fit on either the Howa or the Remington. Traditionally, the stock you bought was very action specific. You couldn't switch it around between different actions. But with these, you can. And it's really nifty. So the actual action itself locks into this UMC. So all of your accuracy concerns, embedding concerns, and everything like that are specific to this chassis here, not the stock. So this is the part that it locks up solid to. So this is where the torque matters and all that other stuff. So it's acting independent from the actual stock itself, which is awesome. So you could potentially have like a traditional looking stock, but have it in a chassis. Like, so you get chassis accuracy out of like just a lightweight synthetic stock if you want, which is awesome. So another reason that's really cool, like I said, I could take, you know, this stock right here, put it on the Howa. Well, now I want to go shoot a competition, but maybe I want to use my Remington for whatever reason. I can just pull this thing off, throw it on that Remington, and my stock's ready to go. So if I have like different pieces already set up on here, I don't have to take them off, switch them to the other gun, all that stuff. I can just throw this on the whole gun. Not only that, another really useful feature I see is, you know, of course, being able to swap two different stocks on the same action. But also, so if I have something like this one right here, and let's say I buy two of these stocks. I buy one for me, and then I buy one for my son, right? And my son has a shorter length of pull, so I end up cutting my stock, moving my recoil pad, and now me and my son can use the same gun by just changing out the stock. So we don't, because if you change out a stock, traditionally on a bolt gun, if you change the stock, you got to re-zero the whole gun. But not with these. Okay, that was my whole like spiel about this. The reason I have both of these stocks still on the table is because I don't know which one I'm going to use yet. I'm just gonna like let the build guide me. We'll see how it looks when we get a little bit closer to the end, and then I'll drop it in a stock. So let's do that. Okay. So step one of installation, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the bolt out, just to get it out the way while we're doing everything. And we will go ahead and install the UMC while we're talking about it. All right, so whenever you get a UMC, it comes with the action screw, which obviously secures the chassis to the action, and then it comes with UMC screws, which secure the stock to the UMC, so we don't need these just yet. But we'll take our action screws, and these are for obviously the Howa thread pitch, and they are both the same length, which is nice. So they just altered the length of the actual chassis so that the screws were the same, which is just a small like little quality of life thing, if you will. Alright, so I'm going to grab a torque wrench here somewhere. I have it up here. There we go. Alright. I need to take a day and just organize some tools. And we're going to set the torque wrench to, we'll call it 65 inch-pounds. We'll do 66 because the vortex wrench stops on even numbers. Move these back. So all we're going to do is take it, drop it on here, and it should be a pretty snug fit. There we go. Alright, and you just gonna need to make sure your holes are lined up. That looks pretty good. Find the appropriate bit size. And we'll just get them started. So if you notice, you have 4 holes in the bottom of this thing. The 2 closer inner holes are for your action. So I'm going to put them in there very, very loosely. I'll show you why in just a moment here. Alright, and I'm going to need an extension to get my torque wrench back there. And this is just a Fix-It Sticks extension. Alright, and like I said, we're going to put them in there really loose. Because what I want to do is I want to push back on this chassis as much as I can to make sure that the recoil lug on the barrel is seated up against the one that's in here. And I'll just give it a little bump on the table here just to make sure everything is seated, and then I'll torque them down all the way. So one of the things, actually, before I go any further, is notice on this one it's closed off. When I did the one on the Remington, it was actually pretty easy because they had the sides cut out of it so I could actually see my lug engagement, which was pretty nice there. But the Howa action is completely different from the Remington. So, all right, I'm going to torque down the front first, and then I'm going to do the rear. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and mount the Optic and all of that stuff. And yeah, I'm going to do that before I put it in the stock. So what I'm going to do, I'll leave these padded jaws in. I'm just going to use these giant flats on the side of this chassis here. I'm going to grab it kind of closer to the rear because this is where all the meat is. This is hollow for the magwell. You could grab it in the front up here by the recoil lug too. Actually, I think that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to grab it in the rear because it'll be easier for y'all to see if it's a little bit closer this way. The point is just grab it where the meat is. Alright, so now that that's in the vise, we have our base ready to go. And for base and rings, we're using EGW, Evolution Gunworks. I've used them a lot in the past and they've always been great. And I will turn down my torque wrench here. I'm going to do 20 inch-pounds on these base screws. It looks like a T15. I should have one in here. I do. Oh, this is one from the Brownells Magnet Tip set. Excellent. Okay. And then a little bit of Loctite on these screws as well. Alright, and what I have here, Brownells medium strength thread locker. So it's blue, like blue Loctite for everyone who deals with the colors, codes and stuff out there. You can use red for base screws. I like to use blue because we're always switching stuff around and whatnot, and I don't want to have to heat it up and risk breaking something. Because red without heat is a permanent thread locker. You do have to heat it up to get it off. And what I'm doing right now, for those of you who haven't seen me do this before, you're like, what is this guy's problem? He's a psychopath. No, I'm not, I promise. Which is exactly what a psychopath would say. But no, I'm just kidding. So what I'm doing, I'm taking a thread locker, putting it on the table, rather than trying to like put it on each individual screw, because that's just drives me crazy. We'll set our base on. Take one of our screws, dip it in some thread locker, drop it in, and I'll just get this rear one started here. And do pay attention depending on what type of base you're using, because the screws can very well be a different length. And typically, let me just double check here. No, these are all the same length. like especially on your Remington 700 type stuff, because the short screws will go in the front and the long ones will go in the back on your Remingtons and a lot of other stuff out there. But sometimes, depending on what base you get, they're all the same length and you don't have to worry about it. And I will just snug up each screw without torquing them down. And then I'll start torquing stuff. So I'll do rear, front, rear, front. There we go. And actually, I know I mentioned I was going to go ahead and mount the Optic. I want to get the proper eye relief and length of pull and stuff, and that's really hard to do outside of the stock. So we will go ahead and mount a stock. In the very next video after this, we're actually going to go to the range and shoot this. So let's just do the precision type stock. That way I can, when we head out to the range, I'll throw a bipod on there. And we'll stretch it out a little bit and see what happens. So the stock to the UMC fit is very snug, just as you expect it would be. Press it in there. Got Loctite all over myself because it's still on the table. I usually wipe it up, but I didn't. All right, nice snug fit. We are just going to press this thing in here. It's wanting to go. There we go. All right. And we'll see if we can use the screws to help kind of pull it in. So if you're going to do that, just make sure it is close to level. You don't want it to be like at an angle and then try and put the screw, because then you're going to end up cross-threading something. But this is pretty dang level, so we're going to go ahead and use that. And our UMC screws. Man, this Ziploc bag is kicking my butt. We'll just do it the barbaric way. All right, now you have your screws and washers, so you'll just put a washer on said screw. We'll find whatever fits, which is that one. Get that out of here, throw this in. And actually what I'll do, I'm going to use a standard screwdriver handle for this so I can kind of feel what's going on. So Brownells magnet tip. And I'm just going to turn it here. Yeah, and you can see it pulling in there. It feels everything's moving nice and smooth as I turn it. So that's good. We'll do the same thing in the rear. And I'm just going to do it until they stop. They do. Alright, and then I'm going to look at it and make sure everything is seated nice and flush. And that looks great. This is my first time using one of these stocks and chassis, so I was just like admiring it for a second. So this is going to be awesome. Okay. Now what I need to do is get that final torque on there. Now I need to do, listen to me trying to use words again. Alright, so 40, what did I say earlier, 45 inch-pounds? We'll say 45 inch-pounds. That's 50. That's more than 45. We'll do 46 for the same reason as before. Alright. A perfect rifle stock fits with 0 bedding. There it is. Okay, now I kind of want to see where I want to put this optic here. And shooting from the bench, shooting from the prone, it's all a little bit different. So, I don't know. Let's see. What I will do now is go ahead and start kind of seeing where I want to put this thing. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to assume probably about right there. So we'll try that out. Alright, so our bases, we're going to set them on there. Push them forward. See how there's a little bit of play there? Push them forward against that rail. And I will hand tighten them. The reason you want to do that is because as your rifle's recoiling, your rings are wanting to stay, or everything on top of the gun's going to want to stay still, right? So as the gun's recoiling, we want there to be no gap for those, so the rings have no chance of being able to slide even just a little bit. And this keeps them up against that nice and solid. So that's the reason we do that. All right, now let's put it there. Not knock over the suppressor. We'll get to that in a little bit. And yeah, this attachment here. And I'm just going to tighten these rings down. I'm not going to go into super detail of my scope mounting procedure. We have a great dedicated video just on that. But what I'm doing right now is very loosely tightening these screws. Just trying to keep the gaps on each side of the ring even as I do that. I'm not really putting any torque at all on here. Nor do I care if the scope is level at this point. And I'm just going to loosen them slightly. And we'll see how that looks. So I'm glad I went with this optic with the higher cheek piece, because that is almost, I mean, it's good. It's almost too low. All right. See how that looks on a higher power. So I checked the lowest power. I'm going to go ahead and check the highest power. And I'm just going to pull my head off the gun, lay it back down. It's actually a little bit too close. And I did leave it loose so I can just slide it forward. Because typically, if I'm too close, standing up with it like this, and when I'm prone, I'm typically actually, just because of the way my shoulder is, I actually am a little bit closer. So I don't want to make sure I'm too close right now. All right. So that's about where I want it, eye relief wise. We're going to go ahead and level it. To do that, I'm going to use the Arisaka tool for leveling optics. So I'm going to place one side under there, then run the angles up against, and this will pretty much level my optic for me. Yep. So the most accurate place to level an optic is going to be that bottom, not the top turret. The top turret is, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You're rolling the dice. If it worked for you, great. It's not going to work for everyone on every optic. Okay. Now, what I will do is get ready to torque this down. But before I do that, I had the paper from my rings that I threw earlier off camera. Y'all didn't see that. But I'm going to check the torque spec on that piece of paper because I forgot what it was. Alright, so I'm back with the paper. Cross bolts are 65 inch-pounds. And then ring caps are only 15 inch-pounds. So we'll actually, let's go ahead and do those cross bolts first. I'm going to move this out the way so I don't knock it off. Alright, and I will need a socket. So I'm just going to grab the socket set here. I went with DeWalt because it's like really close to Brownells colors, because it's, so it was a no-brainer. And at home I have a DeWalt like miter saw, and it's phenomenal. So that was also a factor. Okay, so this is the one we'll need. We have an attachment, and what did I say it was? 65? Well, guess what? It's going to be 66. Here we go. Perfect. And I'll just set this somewhere for now. And then all the way down to 15. Alright, and then we'll reset our level. That looks good. All I'm doing is matching up the angles and making sure I don't see any light through any of it. And that's how you know it's level. So it's literally that easy. And I know I have my hand blocking everything, so you can't see any of that. But what I did, I started with one screw, jumped across to the opposite side, opposite corner, back across, then back across again. And that is how you torque scope rings. Here we go. All right. And then what I like to do is just double check that alignment, because when you're torquing, they can turn a little bit. And that looks really good. So the optic is leveled. That's all done and good. We'll go ahead and throw our bolt back in. Alright, and now we can go ahead and install our suppressor. Alright, but before we do that, let's go ahead and talk about the magazine. So this chassis system, the UMC, uses AICS pattern magazines. So I have a MDT mag we'll be using, and it just locks right in there. Alright, so now we can go ahead and throw on that suppressor. And we're just using a direct thread. So this is a Dead Air RXM, the collaboration they did with Ruger. It's a 308 suppressor, and it is hub compatible. And we're putting it on a 6.5 Creedmoor, but that's okay. It'll still work fine. Not as well as a dedicated 6.5 can, but still pretty darn good. Alright, that's all there is to it. So join us in the next video when we take this thing to the range and see what we can do. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, experience with any of these products, let us know about it in the comments down below. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, if you need help with anything for any reason ever, feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.